Well, guys, here we are. The finale of Dexter New Blood. The series finale of Dexter New Blood. Yes, as of this date, January 14th, 5 days after the finale, it's pretty much been said that there's no season 2. There's no talks of a spin-off. The series is laid to rest as of right now. But Clyde Phillips did say if Showtime ever wanted to, whatever, he'd be glad to do it. But as of right now, it's a series finale, which I always expected it would be. Now, I know this is a few days late, which I apologize, but I wanted to give this a few more days to sort of settle in and think about. The rest of the internet has already exploded with their opinions, and I'm going to start right off the bat by saying I don't hate this finale. In fact, I like the finale. I like the whole season. New Blood was better than season 8. The whole finale episode 10, Sins of the Father, was better than all of season 8. But I will say there's some flaws. And I don't mind how it ended, like the actual final ending. I don't mind how it ended. I will say where it suffers the most is this pacing. I really do feel like there should have been either one more episode or this should have been like a 2-hour special, because the biggest thing about this was it set up so many great things. In the first half hour to 45 minutes was amazing. It was setting up to be, I think, what pretty much anybody could have hoped for. It was a great episode. It was really setting itself up to be one hell of a finale. Then we get to the last 10 minutes or so, where we get the ending, and it abandoned all that, and it really just raced to the end. And that's where I think it suffers. Now, I won't get into spoilers yet, but so it picks up right from the ending of the last one. I mean, it starts with Dexter's cabin is burnt down. Angela shows up. She asks if he has any enemies. He's like, no, of course not, even though he has just killed Kurt. But she does arrest him. And this is all in the promo. You see him getting his mugshot. She arrests him for the murder of Matt Caldwell, because in the last episode she got that envelope with all the pins from his surgery with the note saying Jim Lindsay killed Matt Caldwell. And the whole episode is pretty much him being interrogated. And she's willing to blow the whole Bay Harbor Butcher thing open and bring him down for it. Now, one thing out of the way, yes, I know I have to say this, because on my last video for episode, it was either 8 or 9, the comment section was just, he used ketamine and he used M99 in the original series. Yes, we know, and now we know that you know that. But yes, the original series, he used M99. Here, he used ketamine. I will say, when Angela first looked up, ketamine usage in Miami Metro, and it brings up Bay Harbor Butcher, I believe it says something like ketamine or substances like ketamine. It all falls under the umbrella of animal tranquilizer. He's in a small farming community. He has animals. He got it from a vet. It makes sense. It's a tiny detail that just shows that people are looking for something to, rant about. Side note, there's not much I can say without getting into spoilers, but the whole thing was I knew from the beginning it was going to be capture or death. That's the only way that they could go. They're not going to have him fake his death and live in exile. They're not going to have him and Harrison flee somewhere, whether he goes unknown or the world does know Dexter Morgan is a killer. They weren't going to do that because that would totally betray the whole idea of bringing it back for, another stab at a finale. So it's going to be capture or death. And Clyde Phillips did say that the ending would upset hardcore fans, but the smart hardcore fans would get it. I will say I get what they were trying to do. I get what they were going for. And I accept it. The only thing, I don't think it was executed well. And that's the major problem. They also promised, excuse me, so many, not so many, but a number of very interesting things. I can't even say what those are because I'm pretty sure people have already either seen it by now or had it spoiled for them. I mean, by the end of Sunday night, you look up anything Dexter, there's a ton of articles already saying what the ending blank means for the series. So I guess I'll just have to get into spoilers. But before I do, I also think why a lot of people are so upset is maybe it's just the initial shock, I guess, or the initial feeling a really great show has a terrible ending, and then almost a decade later they come back to try again and have a very great season. This was a very solid season, and after this video, at some point I will be doing a season review where I just talk about the season as a whole. And I think people just had their hopes so high that for some people, no ending was going to be good enough. That's just how it is. For me, I knew it was going to be capture or death. And that's fine. They're going to end it. They got to end it somehow. And I wanted to see an ending where it's like, okay, we can't come back from this. It's over. But, and again, that first 40 minutes or so was excellent. But then there's one event where right after that, it kind of falls apart and it's just racing to the end. And it really could have benefited from that being the cliffhanger and then just having a whole episode of building everything else that happened in that last 10 minutes. But the way the show ended, I don't mind, and I accept it. I like the finale. I just think it could have been handled a little bit better. Miles better than season 8. Miles better than the whole original, series finale, last episode, the whole season really. But there's really not much I can say other than that without getting into spoilers. So, spoilers for Dexter New Blood finale. So just some other key things that happened is while Dexter's being interrogated, he does come up with a story of how Kurt possibly could have killed his son and then framed him. And he spins it so well that even Logan kind of starts to say, hey, he's kind of got a point, and it's more so hearsay, so he's not going to convince a jury. Dexter pretty much had Logan on his side. But Dexter gives her, not an address because she didn't need it, but tells her to go to Kurt's cabin. He says 1,000 feet or whatever from the door. Find the vent, the hatch, go down in there, you'll see what real evil is. So it keeps cutting back and forth between that, him, and Harrison is spending time with Audrey. She does go down there. She sees Kurt's trophy room. And, with each person, she says, so-and-so, so-and-so. And it flashes to, a missing poster from her office. to show that, yes, everyone that she has been saying they're not runaways. Like, she was right about everything, right down to the exact person. And she's, been very dedicated to this case, that she knows exactly who they are. And finally comes upon Molly. But, and also, this is where it really pulled me in, because I wasn't expecting this. She makes a phone call, and we see that she's calling Batista. He answers it, and, she asks about Bay Harbor Butcher, and, he mentions LaGuardia, and that she's dead. And, because if you remember back in, I think it was episode 5, is when he made his surprise appearance, and he mentioned, I think he mentioned Trinity to Angela when they were talking privately, and Deb and all that. So then she brings up, Dexter, and he says, no, he died, and she says, check your email. So he goes and he sees a picture of Dexter and Angela together, and he says, when was this taken? She said last month. He's like, Dexter's alive? So we see him, learn that Dexter's still alive. And she says, do you have anything on Bay Harbor Butcher? And he reaches into his file cabinet and pulls out a huge file that says Maria LaGuardia. And he says, I'm on my way. Right there, I was about to shit myself. Because I always said, if they ever came back for a season or an episode or whatever, like a finale, and it involves bringing Dexter down, I wanted Angel to be a part of it. That was one thing I always wanted to see. I want to see Angel learn about it and be involved in, like, I trusted you for so long. You were one of my closest friends. As with your sister, my sister was the nanny to your son. I loved you like a brother, and one, you were a serial killer, framed another friend of mine, and I believed you were dead for 10 years. Now I'm going to bring you down as Bay Harbor Butcher. So I was stoked for that. See, okay, they're finally going to meet. Even Angela tells Dexter, Angel knows about you, and you're about to have, you're about to have a little chat. But when she goes to Kurt's cabin, Dexter asks Logan for some water. He brings him a bottle, and, he, like, pulls him in, bashes him against the bars. He's, like, choking him. And he asks for the keys, but then he reaches for his gun and pulls and shoots. Now, and at that moment, Dexter snaps Logan's neck. At first, I thought that was an accident. I thought with just how he ducked and, like, the recoil from the pistol or whatever, I thought it caused, like, an accidental snap, like a jerk and a snap. It was on purpose. It's like at that moment, Dexter knew he had to kill him to get free. Rule number 1, don't get caught. So then he calls Harrison from Logan's phone. Says, meet me where the white deer was killed. He gets there. All the while, Angela is calling for backup for Kurt's lair. But then she finds out that Logan was left at the station with Jim. And she's like, fuck. And she runs back. But the meeting with Dexter and Harrison is where it ends. Because Harrison realizes that, he's like, you called me from Coach's phone and you have blood on you. He's like, did you kill him? And Dexter only answers with, he wouldn't cooperate. And so the death of Logan, that should have been the cliffhanger. That should have ended the episode right there, and we should have had a finale episode. Because now, there's no denying that Dexter's a killer. Angela gets back, sees Logan's dead, Dexter's gone, manhunt. Angel arrives. That's what, we should have had an episode like that, or at least another hour, like a 2-hour special. Because right when Logan gets killed, that's where you can tell it's racing. It's trying to get... trying to pack everything it wants to, like, right until the end. So that's when Harrison's like, but Logan's a good man. And he looks up to Logan. You know, good officer, wrestling coach, great father figure to him. He looks up to him. He's like, Logan never killed anybody. He's a good man. But rule number one is don't get caught. And then Harrison kind of has this battle with himself where he's like, you know, yeah, don't get caught, but at the same time, it's like, even if it means killing innocent people, I mean, that goes against this Dark Defender. Because I remember Harrison called him something, and then he says, I always prefer Dark Defender. Yes, I know he calls it the Dark Passenger. That's not what I'm talking about. And Harrison pretty much says, you know, you're not just some Dark Defender vigilante. He's like, you're just a serial killer that likes killing, that managed to find a way to channel it for good, but can kind of fudge the rules if he needs to. You know, you don't care who you hurt or who gets hurt. And then he says, you know, I'm not like you. I don't have this dark passenger. I don't have these killer urges. I'm angry and pissed off and violent because of what you did to me. Now, that's all well and good, but we did just watch in the previous episode Harrison stand by as Dexter killed, dismembered, and disposed of Kurt Caldwell. It did kind of hint at something because when the blood was pooling up, I mentioned this in my previous review, the blood's kind of going towards his feet, and he's like stepping back. Of course, it's giving him flashbacks to Rita in the bathroom, but supposedly that could kind of back this up. And so he says, yeah, I'm not like you. I don't want to be like you. You know, everything you've done, like it all affects us innocent people. And so Dexter realizes, because they were going to run away to California together, and he says, you know, you're right. Well, he tells him, you did good. And he tells him, you know, to raise his, there's only one thing left for you to do. I taught you the code, and now I'm in violation of it. So he tells him to lift his rifle, take the safety off, and fire. And he shoots him. And we see Dexter die. You know, he bleeds out. Angela shows up just then. Harrison's like surrendering, but she picks him up and hugs him, gives him some cash, and tells him to go. Even though she knows he just shot, his father. But saying, I guess they could, he's just another sick killer. Harrison's a good kid, so I'm going to let him go. And he says, can you tell Audrey I said goodbye? She says, I can't because I didn't see you. But she lets him drive off in Dexter's truck, where he drives through this small town where everyone knows him and his truck, past all these cops, past the police department, which is now a crime scene. No one says anything, and he just drives off. And he reads Hannah's letter, from the letter that was mentioned before that Dexter wrote to her after his death. Say if Harrison shows any dark urges, contact me. He reads that, and then he drives off, and it's the end of the episode. Now, I have heard, and I believe this to be true, and this is why I think it's so rushed. I think at the moment he killed Logan, Dexter knew he was in hot water. He knew he's pretty much fucked no matter what, and that it is capture or death for him. He's never been in this kind of situation where he can't get himself out of it. And also, he also sees Harrison as someone that really can be harmed by his consequences and his actions, where he's not a young child anymore that might not remember. He's a young man now. He can and will be affected, so he's a little bit more reckless. He's been sloppy the whole season. which is supposed to reflect, how rusty he is for being out of it for 10 years. But also, there's more at stake, because Harrison is more, he's older, more aware, more susceptible to consequences. And so he's a little bit more reckless as well. So I think when he killed Logan, one, it was a survival / don't get caught thing. But he also made the decision that, okay, well, it's the end of the road for me. I taught him the code. I killed this innocent person because, I have to get out. The only fate I can accept is death. The only person I'll accept that from is Harrison. My son, my only son, the one that has suffered the most from my actions. So it's at that point he chose to become someone that the code would enforce. Because he's never killed someone like this. I mean, there's been... There was like the asshole redneck guy in the bathroom in season 5 that he didn't know, but he said some awful things about Rita, so he, killed him. There's been innocent people that he has killed before, but not someone like this, like a good cop, a coach, someone who was on his side. He wanted Dexter to be innocent. He, was kind of buying his story about Kurt a little bit. So he decided to become, this one that the code would justify. And he taught it to Harrison, and he knew Harrison would abide by it and take him out. That he would fall under the code and be enough to kill. Also, probably why he bought him the rifle for Christmas instead of just a blending in tactic. I think that was I don't know if that's 100% true, but I like to think that he was planning that far ahead, because he always does. Christmas, he bought him a rifle. Also, in case, hey, things are getting pretty hot right now. I may need a way out, and I can only accept it from him. So he chose to violate the code. So, because he taught it to Harrison knowing he would abide by it, which he did. Again, if they had just had another episode, just one more episode where Harrison learns that he killed Logan, and he has this inner conflict with, well, wait, he killed an innocent person, and that went against the code, but don't get caught, and, this isn't who I don't want to be that. Have that, and then at the end be like, well, you taught me the code. I gotta kill you now. And maybe show that this is what Dexter wants. Also, another episode just so Angel could show up, because that was the biggest thing they promised that they didn't do. So other than stuff like that they're hinting at, like Angel showing up in Miami, that they really lost it in the last 10 minutes. They really could have benefited from another hour to develop all that, because it does feel like a harsh flip for Harrison. Previous episode, he's on board with killing and, stalking, vetting, killing, disposing of people that deserve it. And now it's just like, your code's bullshit. And he doesn't want to go down that road. And pretty much by killing Dexter, he's alleviated all that darkness and all that weight that's carried him his entire life. This burden almost. And now he's driving off for a new start. Now, people were saying that there's going to be a Harrison spinoff where maybe Dexter will appear to him as his conscience. I don't think Michael C. Hall would return for that, honestly. I think this was for both Phillips, Michael C. Hall, and Showtime to say goodbye to this character in this show forever, which I can't blame them. And I know there's people that, even if they were like, we're going to make a show about Teddy, the deputy, people would be like, he was in Dexter, so yeah, do it. And I would have rather seen it end, like, that's why I didn't mind him being killed. It's, like, because I'd rather have a conclusive ending so that they can't just keep it going and eventually get stale or bored or, you know, whatever. Have one good season and then end it. And really the worst part about this season was the finale, and I think the only thing that it really suffered from was too many ideas and not enough time. I think if they could have just spent more time developing that end game from Logan's death to the very end, then I think it would have been a much better finale. And I think a lot of people would have accepted it more. And they did kind of do the thing, like I've said before, where the original ending of the show was supposed to be, you know, him on death row. The whole show was like in his head, like waking up, or like drug induced from the lethal injection drugs. As he looks over to the witness booth, he sees all the important people from the show that he's killed or been responsible for their deaths. Here it kind of does that, because as Harrison's aiming the rifle and Dexter's like tearfully accepting his fate, we do get flashes of like Dokes, Rita, Lundy, Deb, LaGuardia, Harry. Is there anyone, like, as far as influences, people that did deserve it? And, you know, so we kind of had that. It still had some closure. I mean, yeah, we just see him bleeding out. And some people are still saying, well, maybe him and Harrison planned it so he can look dead. They did fake his death. No. Let's just accept the fact that it's over. It wasn't as good as it could have been, and I think that's what it was going to be for people no matter what. No matter what the show did, it was going to be a disappointment. It was going to be lackluster, not going to be good enough. But like with the original ending, I like the fact that he faked his death and went into exile. I like that idea. I like the last scene. From when he drives into the hurricane on, I like that. I just don't like everything that leads up to it. I don't like the whole 8th season. Here, I loved New Blood. I thought New Blood was great. I even loved the whole finale up until Logan's death. But I also like how it ended. I just think it needed more development. I think that's the biggest flaw with it, other than not having Angel show up. I'm just going to keep repeating myself, but I don't think it's as bad as the rest of the internet says it is. I really don't. I like the ending. I mean, I would have preferred he got captured and Dexter Morgan is now, you know, one of the biggest serial killers in history. He's now one of the people he's hunted, and he's in prison. I would have rather had that. But if he was going to be killed, I would have rather been someone that does know about him, that has suffered, i.e. Harrison. But it felt so quick and it felt so rushed, and I think that's it. I don't hate it. I don't even really dislike it. I just think it felt rushed. And this isn't to go against the grain or to be in the minority. I genuinely did like it. I just, again, it could have benefited from just more time, another episode, just to flesh out those ideas. If they had just fleshed out Harrison's change of heart, it maybe show Dexter being a little bit more reckless afterward, either around the time of Logan's death or afterward, to show that that's the moment where he kind of snapped or accepted his will-be or planned fate. I think more people would have been on board. So that's really my thoughts on the finale. Just with how rushed the very ending was is really the only gripe I have, other than it setting up these other things like Angel coming back. I'm glad that as of right now, there's no plans for a 2. Well, they can't do New Blood Season 2 because he's dead. They would have to do a spin-off. I know that Better Call Saul is fairly successful, but if they do a spin-off with Harrison and he becomes a killer, I think it would kind of go against what they just tried to do with the ending. So I don't think there's anything there, to be honest. It's better than Season 8. And not to sound like I'm settling, but they did come back to try to right the wrong that was Season 8 in the original finale. They did do that. I know some people are saying that this is as bad or worse than the original Season 8 and finale. I think that's a little hyperbolic. I know it's subjective, but I think that's a little harsh. I think that's people still being really hyped up and just being super disappointed. That's why I waited a couple days. But, yeah. Don't hate it. Don't even really dislike it. I would call it a disappointment, but I accept it. And I thought it was fair. It's unfortunate that it was as rushed as it was. So sadly, with that, we say goodbye to Dexter. And I did just buy a Blood Slide box, an authentic one from Artisan FX. So when that comes in, that's when I'll start doing my season-by-season reviews. But I will do New Blood before then. So, but I guess it's time to say goodbye to Dexter.